The hunt is on. Somewhere in the bush lurks an alien presence. A creature so destructive that millions lie dead in its wake.
Stone dead.
A beast so deadly that even crocodiles fear to cross it. It's breeding uncontrollably and colonizing a continent. Where has it come from? And why is it so deadly? The locals are fighting back. But can the citizens of Australia stop the invasion of the killer cane toads? Australia is Mother Nature's Alcatraz. Over millions of years, this isolated island continent has evolved an unenviable collection of fearsome predators. The place teems with an awesome variety of snakes, scorpions, spiders, lizards, and flesh-rending crocodiles. For as long as human inhabitants can remember, these predators have run the show. But a new villain has arrived. And he's breaking all the rules. He goes by the name of Bufo marinus, the cane toad. This alien intruder is plundering the Australian outback. He'll eat anything, and he's built to eat fast and often. His tongue can shoot out to catch prey at around 3 meters per second. Even his eyeballs are designed to help force food down his gullet. But any predator that sinks its teeth into a cane toad will get a nasty surprise. One bite can release deadly defensive venom. Spread under his warty skin and concentrated in 2 glands on his back is a toxic cocktail of poisons potent enough to kill a crocodile. The locals are in trouble. And it's not a fair fight. Bufo hasn't come alone. He runs with a gang, an enormous gang, numbering in the millions. Since their arrival in 1935, these ecological terrorists have been charging forwards in massive numbers. In just 70 years, they've pillaged their way across the outback, gobbling up everything in their path. They've evicted the natives and turned more than 1 million square kilometers of Australia into occupied territory. And the suffering isn't confined to the wildlife. When the toad comes knocking, bang goes the neighborhood. Each toad contains enough venom to kill a small child. It's deadly if swallowed, although the venom can't penetrate human skin. But Bufo's mere presence is enough to dismay most residents.
On any given evening, you'd probably have 30 or 40 toads in and around the restaurant, with another 50 or so under the floodlights outside.
The Aussies haven't taken to their new neighbours.
The cane toad by far the worst thing that's happened, no doubt about it.
2 minutes of cane toad catching. Nah, I hate the little buggers.
They're just dirty things. Cane toads are just so dirty. I hate them. I hate them.
There's tens of thousands of them. You can't beat them, so you've just got to accept them and live with them.
Despite his victories, Bufo shows no sign of slowing down. His army marches on and on. The cane toad tsunami now stands less than 80 kilometres from the last major human outpost in the north of Australia, the city of Darwin. Named after evolutionary champion Charles Darwin, this town of 70,000 people is in trouble. It's facing the extinction of its toad-free way of life. Other towns have fallen, but can Darwin prove fit enough to survive? The Darwinians are a tough breed. And the city has found itself a bodyguard, Graham Sawyer. Graham won't be surrendering to the alien invaders. He's formed the Toadbusters. Toadbusters is an organisation of volunteers dedicated to the idea of freedom from toads. They're planning a defensive line that will stretch over 150 kilometres in a protective arc around Darwin's eastern approaches. When Bufo arrives, the Toadbusters will be waiting.
So this is our line in the sand, and none shall pass.
The defence of Darwin will require the deployment of toad spies, the mobilisation of the masses, and the blunt aggression of vigilante justice. It will be one hell of a battle. And Darwin's D-Day is fast approaching. The Australian dry season is coming to an end. This 6 months of hot, arid weather cooks the soil and dries up the riverbeds. Toads can lose up to 50% of their body water and still survive. But Bufo's army doesn't take any chances. The toads hunker down during the dry season, sticking to the shade and digging themselves into whatever moist soil they can find. But the rains are now only days away. And when the skies break, Darwin will feel the full force of the amphibian apocalypse. Ironically, Bufo was not always a feared invader. Once upon a time, he was Australia's hero. In 1935, the voracious sugarcane beetle, a sweet-toothed native pest, was decimating Australia's valuable sugar crop. The government desperately needed to find a way to stop the nightmare. And their scientists hit upon the answer: Central American cane toads. In their native lands, cane toads feasted on beetles. They seemed like a cheap and effective solution. The scientists decided on a grand experiment. They would ship 102 of these toads to Australia.
Prospect of a toad destroying all of the pests of sugarcane and doing it for free was extremely attractive. So people were wildly enthusiastic.
Australians greeted the toads as saviours. But unfortunately, the toads had other ideas. They ignored the hard-to-catch sugarcane beetles and instead gorged themselves on the multitude of other insects that filled the fields. The experiment went terribly wrong. The disappointed scientists turned instead to pesticides to solve the beetle problem, and they forgot about their failed toad experiment. But the forgotten aliens weren't going anywhere. And a new nightmare was about to begin. It was time for the toads to breed. Cane toad courtship is a long-winded affair. It begins with the males giving a moonlight serenade. Their close harmony crooning attracts the ladies, who find a good singing voice irresistible. Once partnered up, the male sticks his fingers into the female's armpits, locking in tight for what could be a long haul. He must stay firmly attached to prevent any other male getting a look in. He might have to wait several hours for the female to be ready, but nothing will distract him from his task. At daybreak, he's still hanging in there. And once in water, the importance of a good hold becomes clear. Finally, the female releases her eggs, and the dogged male fertilizes them as they drift into the water. Emission accomplished. Cane toad breeding in Australia was explosive, far faster than it had ever been in Central America. Within a few years, the original 102 had become millions. It was one baby boom generation after another. Cane toads were swamping the continent. The scientists had unwittingly released a monster. But now, 70 years later, the invasion of the killer toads is about to meet a determined enemy in a showdown that could decide the fate of Darwin. Australia is now home to over 100 million cane toads. The northern tropical regions are awash with a sea of amphibians. The main reason for their success lies in their incredible spawn. Or, more specifically, the huge number of offspring laid by each female.
Well, with cane toads, though, the main problem is this. This is all the eggs, and as you can see, there's tens of thousands of them.
Unlike native frogs, who lay between 1,000 and 2,000 eggs, the female cane toad is capable of producing 15 times as many, up to 30,000 eggs, each one a potential toad. The spawn develops at breakneck speed. The eggs take only 3 days to turn into tadpoles. And the tadpoles only 4 weeks to become air-breathing metamorph toads. The speed at which they mature alone would give the cane toad plague potential. But there's more. The eggs, tadpoles and metamorphs are all full of venom. Every stage is toxic to potential predators. Australian pond dwellers attempting to eat the poisoned tadpoles or eggs sometimes realise their mistake and spit them out. Those who persevere generally pay the price. But one of the best controls of toad numbers appears to be the toad itself. It turns out that Bufo is a voracious cannibal. Immune to their own venom, adults gorge themselves on juveniles. Millions are spawned every year in outback creeks and billabongs. Few survive to adulthood, but enough to make the population grow at an average of more than 20% a year. And as they grow, their toxic glands grow with them, until the toads almost overflow with venom.
If you look very, very carefully, you can see the little black dots, and those black dots are the openings to the contents of the gland, and when that is squeezed, the venom squirts out, can go for a distance of over a metre.
Back in the cane toad's native Central America, this venom is nothing special. Over millions of years of coevolution, caimans, snakes and other predators have developed a level of immunity. They happily eat the little toad. But Australia is different. The toads have been there for just 70 years, and the outback predators have had no time to evolve a defense against this chemical attack. They're totally exposed. And as each year passes, the toads invade more territory, pushing native species closer to extinction. The front line of the toad's territory now stands less than 80 kilometers from Darwin. And a change in the weather means the line is about to advance once more. After months of baking heat, the skies finally break. The wet season has arrived, and as water penetrates the earth, something stirs. Rejuvenated by the moisture, the toads begin to move. This season's assault has begun. Between the toads and Darwin lies Fog Dam Conservation Reserve. Fog Dam holds one of the highest concentrations of native predators anywhere in Australia.
Got it. Oh, he's a nice one.
Thomas Matson is among the many biologists watching over the wildlife.
It was an easy catch. He was just...
The huge goanna is just one of the native reptiles that stalks the park. There are also snakes aplenty, and even the odd frilled lizard.
He's an unlocked man. He's a big, beautiful man.
But with the toads on the way, time is running out for all of Fog Dam's residents. Snake expert Ben Phillips is out searching for deadly death adders. The death adder is one of Fog Dam's top predators. It eats native frogs for breakfast, lunch and dinner. But Ben makes a grisly discovery.
This one doesn't look so good. Yeah, he's actually stone dead.
The snake hasn't a mark on him, but it's what's inside that worries Ben.
There's something in his stomach though, so I'll just have a look. Yeah, that mess is definitely a cane toad.
In the snake's mouth is a tiny toad, packed with deadly toxins. The long-expected carnage has begun. The invasion of the pint-sized amphibians is turning the world of Fog Dam upside down. Casualties litter the ground. And it's clear who's winning the battle.
Over there you can hear a mob of cane toads calling at the moment. Buggers. Quite a few out there. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, that's the end of this place.
Fog Dam is being overrun. The toad front line is moving forwards, ever closer to Darwin. The venomous cane toad is a threat to man as well as beast, as bush dweller Viv Sobek discovered. Viv lives over 120 kilometres from Darwin, in what is now toad country. Nature lover Viv was passionate about her local crocodiles.
Freshwater crocodiles used to have a little nest here, or one of the females clearly did, just over there.
Crocodiles the cane toads have wiped out.
There's just nothing. They're not going to come back by magic. So, yeah, it's called local extinction.
The crocs couldn't fight back, but Viv could.
Got you. I know I won't kill every cane toad, but by golly, I'm going to make sure that at least I can knock off as many that I come into contact with. Ooh, got you, little mongrel, got you.
Handling cane toads is relatively safe. The venom is held inside. But conducting violent executions can put you in danger.
When I catch a cane toad and I'm going to kill it, I hang on to it by its legs but above the knee, because then it can't flip back onto its tummy. And I lay it down on the rock, and then I bring the mallet down. Totally dead. Humane and quick.
But Viv's technique wasn't foolproof. And one day a toad got its revenge.
As I lifted the mallet, I saw it flip back on its stomach.
The poison glands on its back were now exposed.
And I thought, hell, I'm in trouble here.
The poison squirted right into Viv's eyes. Despite her best efforts to wash it out, the toxin was seeping into her system. Her eyesight began to disappear. Viv needed help, fast. But she was alone and over 30 kilometres from the nearest town. Her only option was to drive blind.
I could not read the sign. It was very difficult to stay on the road, and the only way I knew I was on the road is because when I fell off on the left-hand side, I could hear the rumble on the gravel on the verge. I found that if I did that, I could actually see small bits like a mini telescope. I knew it was dangerous, but I had no choice. I knew I had to get to the clinic.
Viv was lucky to survive the journey, but she made it to the medical centre and safety. After 6 hours of blindness, her vision returned. And with it came a new respect for her enemy. She now conducts her anti-toad campaign with more caution.
I think it's called revenge of the toads. When you're at war with something like a cane toad, you have snipers and landmines, and I think I got sniped because he got me right in the eyes, as a good sniper would.
Meanwhile, the toads are drawing ever closer to the outskirts of Darwin. Graham Sawyer is mustering his resources. The toadbusters need time to prepare, but they get some bad news. The toads are closing in much faster than predicted. The reports are coming in from Fog Dam, where scientists have formed Team Bufo, a toad intelligence service. Team Bufo member Greg Brown is measuring all the toads he can find, from the very small to the very large. And he's realized that these frontline toads are special. They've evolved into super toads. As a result of natural selection favoring the fastest, most mature toads on the front line are almost 20% larger than average, and they have much longer legs. To determine their precise speed, Greg needs more than their inside leg measurements, so he's enlisted some toad spies. By tagging them with radio beacons, Greg is able to track their movements. Results are astounding. Aided by its huge back legs, the super frontline toad can hop over 1.5 kilometers in a single night, the equivalent of a man marching more than 15 kilometers. This also means that the toad advance is accelerating. The larger, stronger toads are progressing across Australia at over 5 times the speed of their ancestors. Team Bufo is shocked by these results.
We've got large toads, big adult toads, moving incredible distances in very consistent directions. They're going as fast as a toad can possibly go, and so they're storming through the system. And the invasion front has been much more like a military invasion than anything I ever imagined. Much more like the stormtroopers racing over the horizon.
The intelligence indicates that the toadbusters have little time before the cane toad army is upon them. Toads have already penetrated the outer suburbs. And now they're heading for backyards. Amphibious cane toads are like sponges, absorbing water through their skin. Here, the water they need is always on tap. Cool, shady areas abound, and food is plentiful. Toads are swarming over the approaches to Darwin. The hopping warriors are closing in on the last bastion of toad-free territory in the north. But as they advance and begin to cross swords with the locals, things are getting ugly. Outback farmers Errol Woods and his partner Raylene Gwemeli have seen their farm decimated by Bufo's toad army, sweeping through the neighborhood. As farm animals attempted to eat the passing amphibians, the toxic toads took their deadly toll.
We had up something like 60 pigs, now we're down to about 10, I think.
Along with their pigs, they've lost turkeys, peacocks, ducks, and even pet dogs.
Takes a lot out of it, especially when you look after them and feed them and water them and everything like that. It's a shame to see them die.
It's time for revenge, and they're taking no prisoners. Each night, Errol and Raylene's mobile death squad scours their section of bushland. Their mission is to search and destroy. After each night's carnage, they make a tally.
14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
It's just the two of them against thousands, but they enjoy their small victories.
There's two another 60-odd cane toads.
But Errol and Raylene aren't the only outbackers engaging in vigilante justice. And some of them don't mess around.
So this one here is a Winchester or a 22. This one's ideal for distance shooting of cane toads up to about 100 feet. It's an air rifle, it's just a single shot break and doesn't go very far. This is toad load, and this has been marketed to use to actually combat the arrival of cane toads. Very effective over a distance of 100 feet.
But vigilante violence can only take out one toad at a time. To catch toads in large numbers, Graham Sawyer and his toad busters are mass-producing toad traps. They hope to ensnare the toads with cunning one-way flaps. Fellow inventor Paul Baker has developed another ingenious trap.
This is my award-winning cane toad trap. The light attracts insects, which in turn attract the toads. The toads jump up the ramps and jump at the light screen. Then they fall into the trap doors. Once they're in, there's no way out.
Not to be outdone, Graham is also experimenting with a sex trap.
The idea behind this is that we can turn it on, play the cane toad call, and hopefully what that'll do is it'll bring other male toads from around this area to this point where they can get caught in the traps. We can actually now leave this thing in the field permanently. It's got its own power. It'll stay here and do its stuff every night.
All along the front line, the various traps are primed and readied for action. The invading toad warriors are intrigued. Attracted by the crowds of insects and the bewitching sexy music, they hop closer. But their sensual pleasure is short-lived. Cold light of day, the Toadbusters can judge the success of the trapping campaign.
Hello, look at you.
They're all boys?
Yeah, all boys again.
The multiple traps along the front line have performed well.
36.
4, actually.
4. 5, 6. 5, 6.
This trap alone caught nearly 70 toads in a single night's work. Graham has had his first victory.
48. It's all right, mate.
This is the biggest bag of toads I've carried home yet.
The toad busters are optimistic.
Santa Claus coming to town.
Toad, 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 toad.
But isolated traps in the wilderness will not be enough to save Darwin. In this battle against the ranks of the toad army, many people are calling for a weapon of mass destruction. They argue that to destroy a plague of toads, you must release a plague of your own. And the Australians have done this before. In the early 20th century, a plague of over 600 million rabbits was the scourge of the outback. The Australians fought back with biological warfare. They released two diseases deadly to rabbits: myxomatosis and rabbit hemorrhagic disease. These decimated the rabbit population. Scientists are already working on a biological weapon to counter the cane toad, a virus specially engineered to prevent the toads maturing. It should halt their development at the tadpole stage. Dr. Alex Hyatt is one of the government scientists on the case.
We're modifying a virus that's found in Australia. We're inserting into that a specific gene that will only affect cane toads and hopefully lead to their significant reduction whereby they're no longer a pest.
But releasing a virus into the wild may not be necessary to tackle the toad menace. Perhaps the toad's current victims can learn to protect themselves. Ben Phillips snakes are showing that the toads need not be a long-term problem. Studies of the few snakes to survive in Australia's toad-ridden northeast have shown that they don't attack the toads. Instead, they tend to avoid them. And as these snakes breed, they're passing this trait to the next generation. Evolution is making them toad smart.
There's a good chance that over the next 100 to 200 years, a lot of populations of snakes and things like this will adapt to toads, and toads will be less of a problem.
But 200 years is a long time to wait, and many species may well become extinct in the meantime. So why not replace predator evolution with a predator revolution? Thomas Madsen wants to create a toad destroyer using genetic engineering.
Genetic engineering is basically natural selection working really fast. We have engineered animals for years, dogs, everything. They're just bred in a certain way. What you do with genetic engineering, you do it faster.
Madsen hopes to turn the northern quoll into the cane toad's worst nightmare. The quoll is a bite-first predator with a preference for amphibians. As a result, the arrival of the toxic toads has pushed quoll populations to the brink of extinction. To turn the tables, the quoll needs immunity from the toad toxin. And Madsen knows where to find it, in the cannibalistic cane toads themselves. Even cane toad tadpoles have no trouble eating their own. By looking inside the toad's DNA, Madsen's team has discovered its Achilles heel, the immunity gene itself. By implanting this gene into the northern quoll, they believe they can turn it from a victim to a killer, a genetically engineered toad terminator.
The quoll will then have this gene, same as the cane toad, which means that a quoll can eat a cane toad like a hamburger. It will be completely immune to it.
But these super quolls are not yet a reality. Anti-toad science is at least a decade away from creating any reliable weapons. And Darwin can't wait that long. The final battle for Northern Australia's only remaining toad-free city is fast approaching. For Graham Sawyer and the Toadbusters, this is the last stand. They must stop the toads now, or give up any hope of victory. Graham knows that they're hopelessly outnumbered, but he's got a master plan that could put the squeeze on the enemy hordes. With the toads on its doorstep, the city of Darwin has run out of time and options. The Toadbusters' last hope is to use the city's large population to its advantage. They've mobilized the indomitable spirit of Australia in the form of hundreds of volunteer toad snatchers. Up and down the front line, organized toad-busting teams prepare to engage, man to toad. The plan is for a series of mass assaults on reported toad concentrations. By focusing their forces, the Toadbusters hope to eradicate populations in the region. The volunteers are ordered to capture rather than kill. The toads they bag will later be frozen. A peaceful, painless death. And this toad-busting campaign appears to be striking a major blow to the ranks of invading toads. The Toadbusters have caught over 20,000 cane toads. But they've effectively destroyed an even greater number. Each female caught could have laid thousands of eggs. It's a great success, and it might even turn a profit. The defeated, frozen toads will receive no military burial. Graham Sawyer has other plans for them. He's collected tons of toad carcasses to be used in the ultimate recycling experiment. The press have arrived to record the final indignity. The fallen toads transformed into gallons of garden fertilizer. It turns out that dead cane toads make some of the finest fertilizer in Australia.
So this is toad juice, our first batch of fertiliser back from the factory and from its chemical analysis, showing it to be a really good fertiliser with lots of potassium. And it's fantastic to have cane toads in a situation where they're putting something back into the environment instead of taking it out.
This year, despite the best the alien invaders could do, Darwin remains toad-free. Graham believes that the Toadbusters have finally turned the tide against the cane toad army.
I think by October this year we'll have them right out of this area. There'll be a few get in here in the wet and we'll wipe them out again come dry season.
They believe that by continuing their strategy year after year, ultimate victory is certain.
The toad war is winnable. Certainly in an area like Darwin with the environment we've got and the people we've got, we can win this war, no worries.
But Graham may be jumping the gun. Never bet against Bufo marinus. the alien invader won't stop until he's conquered every habitable corner of Australia. And all it could take is the smallest oversight by the enemy. Somewhere by a lake in Toad country, an unobservant angler could unwittingly offer Bufo the chance he needs. This could be the perfect opportunity for some of Bufo's special forces. And these masters of stealth would jump at the chance. By hitching a lift, toads can really travel. And why move 1 kilometre a day when you can hitch a ride and go 50? Maybe even all the way to your destination. Just one pair of fertile toads crossing the line could be enough to destroy the defence. These travelling toads will cause havoc to the defenders' plans. And toads hidden behind the lines are like ticking time bombs. When they start to breed, their numbers will explode. In a moment of passion, these two alone could produce 30,000 eggs, the seeds of an entire new colony. And many more fertile toads are likely to get through. Darwin may be toad-free now, but toads bursting forth everywhere could overwhelm the city's army of defenders. Eventually, the toadbusters will undoubtedly themselves be busted. And the unstoppable march of the toad will then continue throughout the rest of habitable Australia. This battle is clearly not yet over. Bufo may be down this year, but the killer toad is definitely not out.
For further information on all our programmes, as well as interactive clips and games, visit our website at natgeowild.co.uk.
This town of 70,000 people is in trouble. It's facing the extinction of its toad-free way of life. Other towns have fallen, but can Darwin prove fit enough to survive? The Darwinians are a tough breed. And the city has found itself a bodyguard, Graham Sawyer. Graham won't be surrendering to the alien invaders. He's formed the Toadbusters. Toadbusters is an organisation of volunteers dedicated to the idea of freedom from toads. They're planning a defensive line that will stretch over 150 kilometres in a protective arc around Darwin's eastern approaches. When Bufo arrives, the Toadbusters will be waiting.
So this is our line in the sand, and none shall pass.
The defence of Darwin will require the deployment of toad spies, the mobilisation of the masses, and the blunt aggression of vigilante justice. It will be one hell of a battle. And Darwin's D-Day is fast approaching. The Australian dry season is coming to an end. This 6 months of hot, arid weather cooks the soil and dries up the riverbeds. Toads can lose up to 50% of their body water and still survive. But Bufo's army doesn't take any chances. The toads hunker down during the dry season, sticking to the shade and digging themselves into whatever moist soil they can find. But the rains are now only days away. And when the skies break, Darwin will feel the full force of the amphibian apocalypse. Ironically, Bufo was not always a feared invader. Once upon a time, he was Australia's hero. In 1935, the voracious sugarcane beetle, a sweet-toothed native pest, was decimating Australia's valuable sugar crop. The government desperately needed to find a way to stop the nightmare. Their scientists hit upon the answer: Central American cane toads. In their native lands, cane toads feasted on beetles. They seemed like a cheap and effective solution. The scientists decided on a grand experiment. They would ship 102 of these toads to Australia.
Prospect of a toad destroying all of the pests of sugarcane and doing it for free was extremely attractive. So people were wildly enthusiastic.
Australians greeted the toads as saviours. But unfortunately, the hunt is on. Somewhere in the bush lurks an alien presence. A creature so destructive that millions lie dead in its wake.
Stone dead.
A beast so deadly that even crocodiles fear to cross it. It's breeding uncontrollably and colonizing a continent. Where has it come from? And why is it so deadly? The locals are fighting back. But can the citizens of Australia stop the invasion of the killer cane toads? Australia is Mother Nature's Alcatraz. Over millions of years, this isolated island continent has evolved an unenviable collection of fearsome predators. The place teems with an awesome variety of snakes, scorpions, spiders, lizards, and flesh-rending crocodiles. For as long as human inhabitants can remember, these predators have run the show. But a new villain has arrived. And he's breaking all the rules. He goes by the name of Bufo marinus. The cane into occupied territory. And the suffering isn't confined to the wildlife. When the toad comes knocking, bang goes the neighborhood. Each toad contains enough venom to kill a small child. It's deadly if swallowed, although the venom can't penetrate human skin. But Bufo's mere presence is enough to dismay most residents.
On any given evening, you'd probably have 30 or 40 toads in and around the restaurant, with another 50 or so under the floodlights outside.
The Aussies haven't taken to their new neighbours.
The cane toad by far the worst thing that's happened, no doubt about it.
2 minutes of cane toad catching. Nah, hate the little buggers.
They're just dirty things. Cane toads are just so dirty. I hate them. I hate them.
There's tens of thousands of them. You can't beat them, so you've just got to accept them and live with them.
Despite his victories, Bufo shows no sign of slowing down. His army marches on and on. The cane toad tsunami now stands less than 80 kilometres from the last major human outpost in the north of Australia, the city of Darwin. Named after evolutionary champion Charles Darwin toad. This alien intruder is plundering the Australian outback. He'll eat anything, and he's built to eat fast and often. His tongue can shoot out to catch prey at around 3 meters per second. Even his eyeballs are designed to help force food down his gullet. But any predator that sinks its teeth into a cane toad will get a nasty surprise. One bite can release deadly defensive venom. Spread under his warty skin and concentrated in 2 glands on his back is a toxic cocktail of poisons potent enough to kill a crocodile. The locals are in trouble. And it's not a fair fight. Bufo hasn't come alone. He runs with a gang, an enormous gang, numbering in the millions. Since their arrival in 1935, these ecological terrorists have been charging forwards in massive numbers. In just 70 years, they've pillaged their way across the outback, gobbling up everything in their path. They've evicted the natives and turned more than 1 million square kilometres of Australia